Hello and welcome to Regional Roundtable. I'm Will Stewart, President of the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce and your host. Regional Roundtable is a program of the Chamber that discusses economic development issues of regional importance. And today we're here to talk about one of the most important economic development issues facing our region, and that is the issue of young professionals. And joining me today is Nick Delatour, Chair of the Greater Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network, here to talk about this important demographic and what it means for our present and our future. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Thanks. Well, maybe let's start big picture. Tell us about the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network. What is it and how did it come to be?
Well, the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network was actually something that came to fruition, I'd say probably 2.5 years ago. When I first started coming to chamber events, when I had changed careers to being an insurance agent, one of the things that I found was that the ability for me to connect with business owners locally was incredibly difficult because a lot of the business owners that we have locally are older. And not that that's a bad thing, it just means that they've been successful for a lengthy period of time and they have established relationships with people throughout. So it's really hard to break in and make a name for yourself in a community in which there's already people in place. For me, I saw that there was a glaring opportunity for me to bring in a younger demographic locally and to try to find people in a similar age category in a similar position in their career and bring them more into the fold, I guess. The whole idea of the Derry Londonderry Young Professional Network was to showcase Derry and Londonderry as a collective community to the younger generation. Because what happens is a lot of people live here. You know, a lot of people move here as adults with their children because we have a fantastic school system. But what happens is as the children graduate, and they graduate from Pinkerton Academy or Londonderry High School, they go off to college and there's really nothing pulling them back. Through various amounts of conversation that I've had with a lot of different people, we've found that more young people that do leave never come back. And they don't find really any value in our communities. But if you look around, you'll see that there are a handful of younger business owners here that do find success. But then there's also business owners that have been here for a lengthy period of time that don't really have that same sort of passion about growth in our community and within our economy. Like I said, we've kind of been doing this for a little over 2 years. And when we first put the organization together, I don't think we really knew what it was going to be. There are young professional organizations throughout the state. We're actually one of 12. And what we found is that we were networking with a lot of the same people when we had networking events locally to really showcase the businesses that we've had. We've been over to places like the Halligan. We've been to Dre. We've been over to places like Cask and Vine. We've been to Londonderry and what used to be Whippersnappers. We've gone to the Common Man in Wyndham. We've gone to a lot of different places, but what happens is because our community is small and it is so close in proximity to Manchester, to Nashua, and to Salem, we were networking with the same people that we see everywhere. So what happened was we kind of took a hiatus for a while, and I think that offered us some time to really refocus our efforts and our mission. And we're currently in the process of relaunching as more of a economic development and community development advocacy organization. I think that our goal for the long term would be to be able to have an audience with the town council in both of our communities in Londonderry and Derry and be, a voice that matters, because we are experts on this subject. We are millennials, we are a group that's under 40, that we're all successful in what we do. We all live here. We all want to see our community succeed and our community grow.
And I want to hear a little bit more about and ask you a little bit more about that here in a few minutes, but I think you alluded to it here just a moment ago, but I think young professional is one of those terms that is kind of vague, kind of like economic development.
Yeah.
It's kind of vague and broad and seems to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For the purposes of DLIPN, as the organization's acronym is known, yeah. How do you define young professional?
So it's funny, I would never check an ID and say, sorry, you don't belong. What I'm really looking for is people who are young at heart. in theory, on paper, if I were to write things down, I'd say if you're under 40, you qualify as a young professional. But I think that the term young professional, honestly, is too narrow. A lot of people are young, are in our demographic, but may have a job that they don't consider to be professional. So,
an office job, doctor, lawyer, engineer type thing.
They look at those and they say, oh, we're in a professional sort of setting. But we have construction workers, we have people in trades. We have a lot of people who live here who want to be involved, but they wouldn't come out to an event because it said young professionals. So I think that we've spent some time trying to kind of figure out the right verbiage to use. And I'm not the biggest fan of the word millennial. I think that millennial comes with some negative connotation because people just assume that millennials are lazy, that they can't do a lot, that they just expect things to be given to them. Well, I'll tell you that I'm 32. I have 2 kids at home. I'm married. I own my own house. I have multiple vehicles. There's nothing about me that's lazy, So that's a hurtful word sometimes when people just refer to millennials as a whole. But there really isn't another way to classify our group. Millennial in theory is somebody who came of age around the new millennium. I would always consider myself to be a 90s kid. But it's funny that you talk to other people who say they're 90s kid, and to them, they're like born in the 90s, and they think they're 90s people. Where myself, I was born in the 80s. I did a bulk of my growing up in the 90s. I don't technically classify myself as a millennial per se, but I guess that I am because I was in high school around the turn of the new millennium. So it's an interesting word. I think that it's actually more encompassing than young professional. So we're trying to figure some things out as to how we should really classify ourselves to be the most encompassing.
Well, it sounds like you have definitely have your work cut out for you if some people are maybe concerned about the word young and others might be concerned about the word professional.
Yeah.
But I know, words do matter, and how you define yourself and kind of brand yourself will be, to a certain extent, the type of people you attract.
Yeah, it's all perception. I think that when we were running events, when we first started, the whole purpose of our group was really to hold a networking type event where we would get together, everybody would have the ability to learn a little bit about each other, over a couple cocktails, and make some connections to help us further our business. But we saw crowds of 60, 65, 70 people to start at multiple events. And then that became 50, and then it became 40, then it became 30. And then I was trying to find new people who lived local, who wanted to come out. And that was the issue, is they're like, well, I don't really know if I'm like a professional, or, is there an age cutoff? And it's funny, like, everybody in their 30s thinks they're old. They're not. We aren't. But it's just this perception, I'm in my 30s, I'm not a young professional anymore. But I'd honestly have to say that anybody really under 40 is more than welcome in our group. I have people in their early 20s. Myself, like I said, I'm 32. I have people in their mid 30s. We have a really good array of people within our main core group.
Yeah, I know those of us in, I'm 36, and those of us in the late 30s demographic, you're kind of on the tail end of Gen X too, so sounds like it kind of spans a few different, even smaller segments as well. So whether we're, for lack of a better term, young professionals or millennials, what does that scene look like here in the Derry Londonderry region? What's going on with the under 40, your 22 to 40 crowd here?
Well, I'll tell you, there are a lot of them here. There are a lot of us here, rather. But the problem is that I think that opportunity is limited here for people to have a night out on the town, for people to live in a place in which they find appealing. Londonderry and Derry are bedroom communities. There are good business owners, there are good businesses. There are great areas of both communities. However, they're not appealing, per se, to a large majority of a younger demographic. So what happens is they live here. A lot of millennials have moved back home with their parents at some point, and they might still be at home paying off student loans, or trying to, get situated in their field of work. But with that being said, the opportunities to them lie in the city in Boston as basically exit 5 south. A lot of people, communicate into Massachusetts. And then again, we have a major city in Manchester and we have a major city in Nashua within 20 or 30 minutes driving. So a lot of times they go there. We will never, ever be competitive nightlife-wise with either of those two cities. But we do have some really great places. And I think that that's one of the points that we try to get across to young people and to showcase is that there are plenty of places for you to go out on a date night with your significant other or even just out with some buddies, to end the night.
So I know one question that often comes up with kind of the young professional versus more established professionals. Do you really see that it's really necessary? What benefit do you see ultimately for the young professionals themselves and for the region and community for having a group like the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network?
I think that it's important to really have that next generation of community leaders and business leaders primed and ready to go. You'll see there's a lot of empty storefront here in town. And there's a lot of business owners who are close to the tail end of their career. And there's not a built-in succession plan for everybody. So I think to be visible, to play a role in our community, it allows us the opportunity to take over when said people leave. I think that there's a interesting approach that I think a lot of young people take to things. And I think that we all have this idea and this vision of, where we see ourselves in the future and how we see our place in the community. What you'll find is that a lot of young people are very engaged on a community standpoint. There are a lot of us on boards of directors for nonprofits. There are a lot of us who volunteer. There are a lot of us that have multiple jobs. We're active. We want to play a larger role. And I think that our group gives us the opportunity to showcase our talent and who we are to the existing business community and the town's leadership.
Well, I think it's, one of my observations, and, at the Chamber, we kind of, try to look at, take a big picture approach and, look at things, not just from a town level, but a regional level as well. And, looking, not just at our member businesses, which is, of course, our main focus, but really the region as a whole. And if you look at some of the demographic information, Derry in particular, but, Londonderry and some of the surrounding towns, they're getting older. The average age is increasing. The under 20 population, I think, has declined something like 10% in the last 10 years, maybe a little bit higher than that, which is a little bit concerning on a number of levels. But one thing I think that may be a positive for the current young professionals is that you really have more of a chance to shine, maybe that and really step up into those positions of leadership that might otherwise still be filled by older professionals in other areas. I'm thinking, for example, I know we have even young professionals in elected positions.
Yes.
Councilor Josh Borden here in Derry. I know we have Ted Combs in a planning board position over in Londonderry, who's running for town council over there. And it's kind of exciting to see. And you mentioned people on boards of directors. Yourself, of course, you're also on the Chamber board. As is a couple of other young professionals, and I think it's really great too to see. You mentioned some of the businesses that the Young Professionals Network has held events, but really a lot of the business owners that we see, and really I would say maybe some of the more dynamic businesses are owned by the under 40 set. Thinking of Andy Day over at Cask and Vine, Allie Bunicki and her husband Rob over at Kelson Brewing. Eric Olson over
Eric
at
Olson
yes,
Kelson
thank you.
Brewing.
Hopefully Allie won't be watching this show. We won't send her the link.
No.
Just kidding, Allie. But Eric Olson over at Kelson, as well as Mel and Carmel over at the Grind. I mean, just a few examples of some of the great things. So it seems to me things are, from a young professional network standard, going at least pretty visible.
Yeah, it's
right now.
great. It's great. I really value the community here, and I love the fact that we do have passionate business owners, and each one of the businesses that you mentioned, they're in their infancy. They're new, but they're successful, and they're known, and people love going there.
And they bring a vibrancy, to the region, I think, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the Grind Rail Trail Cafe has been a fantastic addition to our downtown ever since the move from Manning Street over to Broadway. They've become exponentially more visible. You look at Andy Day at Cask and Vine and everything that he's doing for the This Is My Derry, which is really an integral part of our business community right now. He has the Princess Bride showing this coming weekend at the Derry Opera House. All that you need to do to get in for free is to go to a sponsoring business, make a purchase, and show up with your receipt, and you can get in to see the Princess Bride for free. It's great. We've done this in the past and did the Polar Express. And there's just, downtown's happening, and there's a lot going on all the time. People are trying to go to these businesses to support. And, a lot of people criticize economic growth and development because they think that it could bring, bad things to some areas, because it's not just about growing the businesses, but you need to bring in more people. And I think for our community, we really need to expand on our downtown. I think that if we were to create a more attractive downtown and bring in the right sort of property investment companies and property management companies and really do it the right way, we could be a mecca for young people in the state. We are still close enough to Massachusetts where they can commute. We have 4 craft breweries within a couple miles, so don't have to go far for great beer.
Right.
We have a meadery down the street. There's a lot of really good things happening locally, and we could set ourselves up for significant success in the future. I think we look at what Woodmont Commons is going to bring into Londonderry and the economic growth that that's going to create. I think that you'll see a lot of young people gravitate toward that as it's a planned, walkable community. But I don't want that just in Londonderry. I want to see success and growth here in Derry as well.
So what would you say from a young professional perspective? What's holding us back? What are some of the challenges to attracting those more young professionals living, working, and playing here in Derry and across the region?
I think that what you'll find with young people is, I drive for Uber too, so a lot of people who use Uber are younger. So I have some really interesting conversations. And there's a lot of people who don't own vehicles. There's a lot of people who don't own homes. They like to rent. They'll pay a significant price for rent because they don't have the car payment, they don't have property tax, they don't have other things, but it gives them some additional income to just go out and about and travel and go out to dinner. I'll tell you that what would really make our community work is if we had good housing close to downtown. And I'm not talking about, multi-bedroom units. If we could have stuff like studios and micro one-bedroom apartments, stuff that would say, it's really only going to be for one person or for two, you'll find young people who want to come in and have that access to downtown, have that access to the community where everything's in walking distance. That's a selling point. And Derry's great because we have a lot of good features, here in town. We have a lot of land that's for sale when you purchase a home. I just bought a house here in Derry in April, over in East Derry, and I have an acre of land, a really great home, but it takes me 15 minutes to get downtown, which means it takes me 20 minutes to get to Manchester from where I am. It takes me 15 minutes to get to Plastow and Haverhill, and 15 minutes to get to Salem. I can go to all those places. Why do I want to come downtown? And those are the things we need to think about. If we create more foot traffic downtown by creating more real estate downtown, we'll increase the flow in and out of businesses. I think that if we were to have office space, first floor, ground level, downtown, you'd bring in more small office type business, and they'll walk out up and down the street to go to lunch. Our businesses will be able to be open different hours. We'll be bringing more money in. I think that there's a lot of really great things that can happen downtown, but I think that there's not the right voice. And that's the whole reason for the Derry Londonderry Young Professional Network, is to be the voice of somebody under 40 in our community, and let people know, here's who we are, here's what we would like, here's some really great ideas to make that happen.
That's great. Now, and then I, on behalf of the chamber, I know at the kind of the density issues you were talking about with regard to getting maybe smaller apartments, micro apartments, studios, things like that. Increasing the density downtown is something the chamber advocated for this summer unsuccessfully here in Derry. But still, I think there's hope for that in the future. Do you have any other kind of policy recommendations that you think would be good for Derry and the region that you'd like to see maybe enacted to better, again, attract or retain? Let's not forget about retaining as well young professionals in the area.
I know that there's a lot of things that I think that need to be different. However, I think that the thing that I would like to see the most is for our elected officials, for our town employees, for everything else to reflect our demographic and our age. I think that I would love to live in a place where the people making the decisions were more of my ilk. I think that there's a lot that can come from that, which is why I think Josh Borden is a fantastic addition to the town council here. He's a voice of a different generation, and I think that's incredible to have in our community. You did bring up the fact that it is an aging community. New Hampshire in general,
it's true,
is aged.
Mm-hmm.
They're the second oldest state in the country. And we've got to do something about it. I think that our proximity to Mass creates issues because Cambridge is an hour away. Downtown Boston is an hour away. There's opportunity there. So how are you going to keep them here? And that's a question that this state has been fighting for years. And there's a lot of really great organizations here that advocate for youth to stay. But we need to give people a reason to stay.
Or come. I think that's part of the equation that's often overlooked. I know I'm not from here originally. I moved to
I don't know too many people who are from here.
Right, and that's one of the beauties of New Hampshire too. I think, particularly southern New Hampshire, is we're able to attract a lot of people up, and I think that, I get it. I remember my early 20s, and you want to live in a big, exciting, place with a lot going on. But as your circumstances change, your perspectives and priorities change, especially when you start having kids and start thinking about things like school districts and property values. And
there's a reason I moved here.
Right, and I think that a successful pitch could be made, particularly to those in the Boston area now who are starting to get married, have kids. Maybe they want to get out of the city and still have access to the city and all the various amenities that this particular location provides. And still get those, get the great schools and great property values as well.
Yeah, I think that if we're able to focus more on bringing younger people into town, I think that we'll become more attractive. We just have to have the right things in place to do so. The housing needs to be correct. The businesses downtown need to be correct. Access off the highway, which we talk about exit 4A in the future, in just a couple years. You're going to have access to points in Londonderry that currently take some time to get to. You're going to have direct access to the Neon District here in Derry. There's going to be a lot more accessibility, and for commuters, that counts. That matters a lot. And I think that if we can bring up young people and really highlight the life that they can have here, we talk about work-life balance. This is a really great spot in that we're less than an hour from the seacoast, we're an hour from the mountains, we're an hour from the city, and if we have our downtown set up the right way and our community set up the right way, they can get a lot of that vibe that they get in places like Cambridge and the new parts of Somerville. And you look at what's potentially going to go on in Salem with Joe Farrow's project at Rockingham, they can get a lot of that here. And it's a really great community. There's great people, great business owners. There's a reason that I decided to raise my children here. I moved to Londonderry when I was 16 years old in 1999. And I've gone back and forth between Londonderry and Manchester for the last 15 years. And I've owned property in Manchester. But as my children started to grow, I decided that's not where I wanted to raise my family long term. So it was a very easy decision for me to make to move to Derry. I love the community here, and I think that the people who I have as part of the Derry Londonderry Young Professional Network love where we live too. And it is both Derry and Londonderry. So I have some great people from Derry, I have some great people from Londonderry. We all live, work, and want to play here in our community.
Well, it's great, and we certainly wish you all the best of luck as you wish to kind of recharge, re-energize, and reboot the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network. And it's great to hear you have such a core group ready to lead that charge. And on behalf of the Chamber, thank you. Recognize that young professionals, of course, it's cliche to say that you are the next generation coming in, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And there's a lot of, a stronger entrepreneurial spirit, it seems, with the millennials than
absolutely
with greater generations. And I think that you can really be a force. Our generation can really be a force, for good for the entire community, both from a business standpoint and a civic and community standpoint as well.
I 100% believe that. I think that we are the future, but the future is now. I think that where we envision our community is exponentially different than I think that everybody else has seen this community. So I think that there's a lot of really good things going on, and I want to be a voice of advocacy for that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for providing that voice. And as we wrap up, I'd like to give you the opportunity, if anyone's watching at home that might like to learn more or to get involved, what's the best way for them to find out a little bit more and how they can be a part of this great initiative?
We have two groups on Facebook. We have the DLYPN Facebook page. Just type DLYPN into the search bar. You'll find the page. And then we also have a group, the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network group, which is a members group that everybody goes on and puts information up there about whatever they're doing in business. So it's just all younger business owners really advocating for themselves. So both of those places are great starts. If you send the Facebook page a message, it comes to me. If you send Dilippin at gdlchamber.org, an email. It comes to my iPhone. So I'm here, I'm ready, I'm willing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nick Delatour, Chair of the Derry Londonderry Young Professionals Network, for being our guest on Regional Roundtable today and telling us all about this great initiative. And we certainly look forward to great things to come.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Of course. And thank you for watching this edition of Regional Roundtable. Look forward to seeing you next time.